program. And today what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about a condition that we see quite often in the clinic, and it's a condition that I refer to as piriformis syndrome. The piriformis is a muscle that runs from the tailbone or the sacrum area out to the hip joint here. And you can see it running this way. And this muscle is a short triangular muscle that causes the hip to rotate outwards like this. Now, the significance of this muscle is that the sciatic nerve, and that's this yellow portion right here, if you can see that, the sciatic nerve will run underneath that muscle in some cases. In some cases, it will run over the top of the muscle, and in very rare cases will actually pierce the muscle itself. Regardless of the position of the sciatic nerve, when this muscle becomes tight, it will affect the sciatic complex because the muscle begins to turn on itself either above or below and basically creates a knife edge. And that knife edge of the muscle will cause some irritation to the nerve itself, and you'll get the symptoms that will typically go down the leg. Sometimes, or the typical symptom pattern is that it'll go into the buttocks. You'll feel pain in the buttocks, down the back of the thigh, and then over the outside portion of the knee, outside portion of the lower calf to the top of the foot. That will be the typical pattern that you'll see with a piriformis syndrome. Now, to treat this problem, you have to, number one, identify it. And this is where a lot of mistakes are made and a lot of misdiagnoses are made. Because when you have a patient that presents with sciatica, the first thing that the physician is going to do is going to get an x-ray of the spine. They're going to get perhaps an MRI of the spine. And in many cases, in fact, most of the cases, you're going to see some degenerative changes in the discs between the spine itself. Now, the disc will be implicated as the source of the problem, as the source of the sciatica, and then a complete treatment program will be offered to alleviate the symptoms of the disc. Now, that being said, you have to understand that if we were to take 100 people off the street who were having absolutely no problems whatsoever, zero pain, and we were to run them through an MRI scan, as high as 85%, depending on who you read in the literature and what study you're reading, as high as 85% of those asymptomatic people, people with no pain whatsoever, will have some evidence of some disc degeneration, some disc bulging, some disc herniation, some disc protrusion, whatever you want to call it. As high as 85% of those people will have that. So the tendency is to treat the disc problem and ignore what's going on outside the spine. So you'll find a lot of people will start to get epidural injections into this area, and the epidural injections won't work. And so the next step, if the epidural injections don't work, well, it's obviously surgery. And what will happen is that they'll go in for a surgical procedure where they'll do a discectomy, in some cases, radical cases, a fusion, and the symptoms won't be any better after surgery. And the reason for that is because the problem wasn't necessarily up here, even though we identified some issues up here. The problem was actually down here in this muscle here. And so to effectively treat this, you have got to, number one, identify the source of the problem, and then come back and treat it with the appropriate treatment regimen. Now, the appropriate treatment regimen is usually, in fact, more often than not, you can fix this problem with some very simple therapeutic exercises that are prescribed for this particular condition, and a strict regimen of follow-up. In certain cases where this muscle is very irritable, and it does happen to where the muscle gets very, very irritated, then some injection therapy right into the muscle is oftentimes very effective at calming the muscle down so that you can then come back with the appropriate therapeutic exercise prescription. I hope this helps you in understanding the piriformis syndrome and associated sciatica symptoms a little bit more. And if you'd like some more information about how my program might be able to help your particular situation, I invite you to visit me by just clicking the link that you see right below this video. This is Mountain Schexnayder wishing you all good health, and I do hope our paths cross soon.